The art of spiritual storytelling today. Introduction: Spiritual storytelling. It's a special form of artistic and intellectual expression in which the narrator's purpose is not limited to simply conveying events or describing characters. It is addressed to the listener's or reader's inner world, aiming to evoke an experience that goes beyond the mere reception of information. Spiritual storytelling is, in a sense, a form of conversation, not between two people, but between the author and that in a person, which lies deeper than logic and pragmatic thinking. In an era when the pace of life is accelerating and the media stream overwhelms our attention, spiritual storytelling becomes not only an artistic technique, but also an act of resistance, a slow, thoughtful effort against superficiality. It appeals to the memory of deeper meanings, to what does not grow outdated, inner growth, the search for harmony, the experience of transcendence. Today, the very concept of spirituality has become a subject of debate and even commercial speculation. It is especially important to distinguish genuine spiritual storytelling from its imitations. True spiritual speech does not advertise ready-made recipes for happiness, but invites one to a journey in which the path is no less important than the destination. Traditions and roots of spiritual storytelling. The origins of spiritual storytelling go deep into the history of humanity. In the oral traditions of ancient cultures, the word often had a sacred meaning. Myths, legends, and ritual texts were perceived as a way of transmitting not only knowledge, but also the inner code of a people. Religious texts, from the Vedas and the Bible to Sufi parables, have always been both narratives and guides. They offered stories rich in symbols, and the symbols, in turn, became keys to understanding existence. Folktales often concealed deep spiritual lessons under layers of fantasy. A hero walking through a dark forest, encountering monsters and helpers, is a metaphor for the human inner journey. In this sense, spiritual storytelling has always been universal. Its spoken images accessible to any culture. In the Middle Ages, spiritual storytelling became both a tool for education and a space for mystical experience. Monastic chronicles, saints' lives, Dante's Divine Comedy, or Petrarch's The Story of the Ascent. These are not merely works of literature, but full-fledged spiritual maps, indicating both trials and sources of consolation. 2. Modern forms of spiritual storytelling today. Spiritual storytelling goes beyond the book and the oral tale. It lives in prose, poetry, cinema, theater, as well as in podcasts, blogs, and even in short forms on social media. Prose and poetry. The modern novel can be built as a psychological study, where external events are merely a background for an inner drama. Poetry retains the ability to convey a state instantly in a single image, a single metaphor that strikes a spark in the reader. Cinema and theater. The screen and stage allow for spiritual storytelling not only through text, but also through visual and sound imagery. Examples can be found in films where action develops slowly and the plot is secondary to atmosphere, as in the works of Tarkovsky, where the viewer is drawn into a state of contemplation. New media. Podcasts and blogs become platforms for spiritual expression if their authors create not a stream of news, but a space for reflection. Even short social media posts, if crafted as personal confessions or reflections on values, can become part of spiritual storytelling. Themes and motifs of spiritual storytelling today. Like genres where plot and dynamic events are the driving forces. Spiritual storytelling revolves around semantic nodes that may be far more important than the storyline. Here, themes and motifs serve as milestones on the inner path. The search for meaning. The central theme of spiritual storytelling is the eternal question, why? The protagonists of such texts are rarely outright winners or losers. More often, they are wanderers seeking meaning in events that surpass them. The story becomes not so much a tale of success as a chronicle of inner transformation. Overcoming fear and suffering. The theme of suffering is inextricably linked to spiritual search. It is important here not to dramatize suffering for effect, but to show how it can become a point of growth. In truly spiritual works, Tragic events do not merely evoke compassion, but prompt reflection on the value of life and responsibility toward oneself and others. The relationship between humans, nature, and modern culture, this theme has gained special resonance. Nature acts not only as a backdrop, but as an equal participant in the narrative. The forest, the river, the desert, or the sea in a spiritual context become symbols of a person's inner state, mirrors in which they see themselves. Dialogue. Between cultures and religions, today's world is a space of intersecting traditions. Spiritual storytelling becomes a bridge one can cross from one worldview to another without losing one's own depth. Here the key motif is not debate but mutual understanding. The search for a common language among different systems of faith. 4. Language and style of spiritual storytelling. Symbolism and allegory. Symbols are among the most important tools of spiritual storytelling. Symbol does not impose meaning but invites the search for it. A ladder can signify spiritual ascent, fire, purification, and the road the process of life itself. Metaphoric richness. Metaphor links the concrete and the abstract, the inner and the outer. A strong metaphor not only adorns the text but opens the space for multi-layered perception, lyrical intonation. Spiritual storytelling often employs an intonation close to meditation or prayer. The pace of speech slows. Sentences may be rhythmically precise, almost musical. This creates the effect of drawing the audience into a special state of attention. Open structure. Unlike genres with rigid dramaturgy, spiritual storytelling can end not with an answer, but with a question. Such a finale does not place a period, but opens a space for continuation within the reader. Problems and challenges of spiritual storytelling. Today, commercialization of spirituality. Many publishers, film studios, and bloggers exploit the outer appearance of spiritual plots, replacing them with simplified motivational stories. This leads to an inflation of spiritual language. Words like enlightenment or path lose weight when used as mere decoration. The clip mentality. Modern media fosters a habit of quick, fragmentary impressions. Spiritual storytelling, however, requires time, silence, and immersion conditions that are becoming a luxury, pseudo-spirituality. The danger of imitating depth lies in the fact that it satisfies a superficial need to touch something greater without leading to real inner work. Such storytelling comforts but does not transform. The future of spiritual storytelling. Digital forms and artificial intelligence. Technology opens new horizons. Interactive narratives are possible, where the reader not only observes, but also influences the hero's spiritual journey. Artificial intelligence may help create multi-layered texts, but preserving authenticity and sincerity will become a key issue. The revival of oral traditions. Paradoxically, in a high-tech world, we see growing interest in the living word podcasts, authors' lectures, intimate performances. People are once again seeking the experience of direct communication, where storyteller and listener share a moment in the here and now. Global synthesis of cultures. In the future, spiritual storytelling will likely blend elements of various traditions even more. Already today we see novels where Christian symbolism coexists with Buddhist parables, and the plot unfolds against the backdrop of global social issues. Conclusion. The art of spiritual storytelling. It's not a genre in the narrow sense of the word, but a special dimension of human culture in which word and image become conduits to inner silence, to that part of us that can see deeper than the obvious. Its history stretches back centuries, but today it not only retains its relevance, it gains new significance. In an age when the flow of information crashes down on us like an avalanche, spiritual storytelling becomes an island of slowing down. Here there is no race for novelty, no dependence on algorithms and trends. There is a person, their story, and that elusive something that arises in the space between author and reader, storyteller and listener. True spiritual speech never preaches or dictates. It does not impose ready-made answers, but on the contrary, teaches how to ask questions. Its task is not to replace inner search, but to ignite its fire. It does not shield from pain or promise easy solutions. It gives the strength to face oneself without embellishment. The future of spiritual storytelling will likely involve a new synthesis of forms: the book, theater, cinema, podcast, virtual reality. All these can become fields for spiritual experience. Yet, despite the changing forms, the essence will remain the same: to transmit from person to person, not so much information as an inner impulse, that very sign on the path that keeps us from getting lost in chaos. Ultimately, the art of spiritual storytelling is the art of reminding us that behind every event stands meaning, behind every voice, a personal story, and behind every day, the opportunity to take a step further than we are used to. Tells us your road is not finished, and the most important pages are still ahead.